dealing with more than just High Bridge. But let's see. Oops, here we go. All right. A little bit of background information for some of you who may not have been here before. Bob Flippin and I, about 18 months ago, decided to do the project of putting together all the High Bridge information we could get into one place, and also to put it on the internet where it could be shared with people across the United States or across the world. So, to back up a little bit, back in '95, Joe Smith, who's a member here, she had written a small booklet about the history of High Bridge, and she sold them around town, and she had been down at High Bridge and took pictures herself. She had, after getting married, had moved to the farm that adjoined High Bridge property, and she was married into that family, the Smith family, and so she knew more about probably High Bridge than anybody else at the time. So Joe did a couple of different programs, but at that time we didn't know anything about these fatal negatives. So Joe did 2 programs, and Bob Flippin did 1 program, and then when we knew that tracks were going to come up and that High Bridge Trail was coming through, Bob Flippin was able to buy over the eBay system 85 slides called the failed negatives, that's what they call them, or the lost photos of High Bridge. And they were shipped here from New Mexico, I think, right there. Okay. The story behind all that is Mr. Willis Bale, who had really not anything to do with the early High Bridge, but he came here when we got ready to have this steel bridge built. And he also came with his camera. He was an amateur photographer, and he set up on High Bridge location, all in a construction site, and took a lot of pictures, evidently 85 or more. And we were able to get those negatives, have them turned into photographs, and a group that called Friends High Bridge, who were at the time helping get the trail going, buying boards, different things to help beautify the trail from here to the bridge and the other way. So they had the 85 negatives turned into pictures, and they sold this book with all 85, I think, published in the book. $20 from the Friends High Bridge, and from what I understand, they sold 500. They printed in the book and did 500 more. So there's a lot of these books floating around, and they might have some still. But what happened once we got those negatives and they printed this book, and the High Bridge we knew was going to be built, that the Farmville-Prince, that's where Bob Flippin worked at the time, he did 2 publications or inserts into the Farmville-Prince, and he did detailed work about how long the bridge was, how tall it was, and how much weight it could control, and the history of them building the bridge. So he did 2 of those. Well, over the years, these things have begun to get tattered and yellowed and so on. So Bob and I decided to get all the information out of these two inserts, scan it, and put it into a PowerPoint presentation where it would be preserved and it could be watched over videos we posted. So that's the story of the negatives. Well, of course, until they got the negatives and had time to develop, and Bob finally was able to come to the Historical Society, bring the park rangers and the people that were getting ready to open the park. They did a PowerPoint on the negatives and basically told the story. So that was about it. They did one show in 2005, and then over the years, trail got built, everything got done down at High Bridge. They covered over the bridge with all the wooden structure now. So I told Bob, I said, look, Bob, he coveted those negatives like they were gold. I said, look, you got digital copies, give them to me. Because I had Photoshop, PowerPoint, all that on my computer. I said, I can take these negatives, some of them are not so good, a lot of them are dark, or they have imperfections in them. Well, with Photoshop, I can turn them into look like you just took the picture yesterday. They were black and white. So he agreed. Let me have copies of them. And I told him, you and I will get together and you teach me what you know about all these pictures and what you know about High Bridge. And we were going to go on the road and go all around, go to different places and give the shows. So during that time, Bob and I were also working with the Dunnington Foundation, trying to get the old Dunnington mansion fixed up. And a couple times a year they would have these two photographers out of Richmond would come up and they would sell tickets to this event. And they were both real-time photographers. And sitting there one day with them talking, the guy was saying, do you have the latest version of Photoshop? And I said, yeah. He said, have you tried the neural filters? I said, well, I've seen it in the software, but I don't know what it is. He said, well, you've got to get into that. It's, you can take black and white pictures and turn them into color pictures. I said, that sounds good. So he told me what to do. I went home and toyed with it and learned how to do it. So as Bob and I were progressing with preserving all this information, I said, Bob, I'm going to turn all 85 pictures into color pictures. We'll have good black and whites, and then we'll have a set of color ones. So that's how we got into doing these PowerPoints. So now we have the pictures. Most of them were able to be colorized. We also have really nice black and whites. Some people, some groups prefer black and whites. Others like the color pictures. So we have it both ways. I kind of like the black and whites for, you know, they look like the period pictures. And I just like the format of black and whites. So we also have them all in color. So that's how we kind of got into the negatives. The story behind the negatives, as I understand, is Willis failed when, so no, once we got those negatives, it turned a whole different complex of what we could learn and do. And everything changed with those negatives. So, let's see, that's about all I can tell you from that. I'm going to ask Brian, will you put these back there on the table in case anybody wants to look at them?
The negatives were glass plates.
Yes. I'm going to show them these and those in a minute.
That photo right there,
Yes.
that's me on the bicycle. I was just heading to be riding across the bridge one day, and the helicopter was circling around. What in the world are they up there doing? You know, they were doing promotional for the State Park Service. So I got to be in the photo.
Brian works for the town of Farmville owns the train station. So we kind of got, when you use train station, Jerry Spates started off letting us use here, and Brian is running that web page that I showed you. So, anyway, let's get going here. There's a picture of the presentations that started coming out in basically 2011, 2012, and a lot of those are on the table back there. A lot of the information was obtained by Bob through these magazines. One in particular called Engineering News. It was published evidently back in their early days. This particular issue was September of 1914. They did a story, almost a full rundown on how the high bridge was built. Tells who built it, who were the contractors, all the specifications, everything we needed to know. So to keep all this information from getting lost, we included that in these PowerPoints. And so much detail, we don't have time to read all that tonight or any night, but that is where most of this real detailed information is. And I'm going to breeze through it tonight, but if you want to go back and read it, all this stuff that's been here tonight and on the screen the last couple of meetings, it's going to all be posted on YouTube. You can watch it, you can hit the pause button and read all the information. Everything will be contained in one place on these videos. Story behind it, Mr. Willis Vale. He was born in Quakertown, Pennsylvania. He was a Quaker, and he went to college and to be a civil engineer. He was certified as a surveyor, and he got hooked up with doing jobs for the railroad. He would come, the railroad would say, hey, get in into that job site, see it's done right, and oversee the contractors. He took all these pictures, and we figure he took at least 1,925 because they're numbered. But only about 85 of them that we can tell were taken here at High Bridge. And Farmville only purchased these 85, but I was able to go on the internet and find 485 more negatives, but they were taking pictures all around the United States. So we wanted to know where did he start, what year, so on the background. Well, we understand that he went to 15 different states, I found out. I did a database, put all these pictures, the 485 more pictures in a database, put them in chronological order, and we have those too. But the story behind it was, lost my train of thought. When he retired evidently from the railroad, or from doing these jobs, including working for the railroad, he went back to Quakertown, Pennsylvania, at least with the negatives, stored them in a barn near his house or in his backyard or wherever, and it was 75, 80 years later they were discovered. Of course, by then he had died in the 1950s. So they started, some of them got scattered and lost, I'm sure, in that barn. But they decided a good idea was to sell these things, and eBay was a good way. That's how it didn't sell very good up in Pennsylvania, evidently. So somebody in Pennsylvania knew a guy in New Mexico, and he traveled up to Pennsylvania, made some kind of deal to have all the negatives. He hired a plane to fly him back with 3,000 pounds of glass negatives. Then he went about putting them on eBay and selling them. That's how Bob Flippin and the High Bridge State Park learned of these negatives. And they bought $2,000 worth, and the Friends of High Bridge paid for them. And they were given to High Bridge, and High Bridge State Park has now got them stored in a railroad museum there in Southwest Virginia. But I have a database, and I want to know what state did he take the most pictures in, where did he start, so on. Well, of all, a little over 500 of them that I now have stored in our database, about 25% of them were taken in Virginia. More than any other state, he took more pictures in Virginia, at least we've uncovered more of them that were taken here. It appears that number 1 through 10 was taken here in Virginia. He started out over in Southwest Virginia and took some pictures at Big Bull Tunnel, which he was fascinated with evidently. He went there and took pictures, and they were dated 1 through 10 basically. So once we got the negatives, that changed everything with doing the history around here. Joe and Bob and the people who did them early on, we had no idea these negatives ever existed. So we presented here in the last couple of months, part 1 and part 2 of the history of High Bridge. The first couple of meetings, we studied the early bridges. The bridges, the Southside Railroad came through here, built all this track out here, all down through High Bridge. They, lost my train of thought again. Anyway, they, Miss Towler, I might think of it again in a minute. Anyway, Willisville. I'm not going to read all that, but he was from Pennsylvania, he was a civil engineer, surveyor, and he came to Farmville with his camera and took these pictures, which we now have. And we have some pictures of him. Bob had printed all this type you see in those magazines. I'm not going to read about all of it, but we're going to talk about a lot of it. But while he was stationed here in High Bridge, he also traveled to other sites for the railroad. So originally, I don't know what Bob thought, but I thought that Mr. Bale came here, sat down, and stayed here the whole time and watched everything and went over everything. But we have not only his negatives, but we also have a journal that he kept. And the journal, somebody took all the time and effort to sit down and type it all out, gave Bob Flippin a copy, and this in the order in which Mr. Bale made all these notes. And it appears from the journal that even when he was here at Farmville, the railroad might have sent him word, hey, get out there to Southwest Virginia and check on this, or go over here and check on that. So he didn't stay here at High Bridge every day. He was on the move constantly, it looked like. And from what we assumed, he probably had to do was oversee these contractors. Contractors made a deal with the railroad, and they signed a contract to do each segment of work. And I think Vail was here to enforce it and see that it was done right. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think after he did Lynchburg Beltline, that's when he was locked in with them, and they were like, you go here, you go there.
Yes. So, there's a copy of the part of the pages of this stuff. It tells where he went, who he met with, what he had to suffer, what he brought back, a case of oranges from Florida or whatever. It's pretty detailed. I haven't read it all, but that is that. Here's a picture of just some sample negatives. These are not the actual negatives, but back in the day, the old cameras, you would slide a pane of glass in with some chemical on it, snap the picture, and then you would later develop that negative off this, embedded in the glass. Willis is, each time it looks like that he would take a picture, he would slide it into one of these envelopes. And he would put on there the date he took it, maybe the weather, an explanation of the picture. A lot of them have like camera settings he used, and they're all numbered, which makes it nice. See up in the top corner there, right there, the negative number, and dates. So there's a picture of his actual journal, handwritten, and like I said, it's been transposed in the typing now. There's a picture of him at his desk. We don't know where, but somewhere at the desk. These are actual pictures of him. And we just talked about this as what his responsibilities were to the railroad. I was able to find, out of all that journal, the ones that pertain to Farmville. So it's like, there's a journal, there's him with the camera. These are not actual pictures of him or the journal, but gives you an idea of what it would look like. Using these envelopes with the information on it, we were able to figure out the order in which pictures were taken, and somewhat gave us an idea of what was going on in the picture. So, from that information on the envelopes, I did a, what do you call it, not database, but a spreadsheet of all the jobs down the left-hand side here of what, according to the dates on the envelopes, this is about how the jobs unfolded. From getting there, cutting the trees down, getting everything done, to the last day when they took the old bridges down. So now we have some kind of order of how it all went. And right here where I've got my little cursor, because months go crossed out, it appears that a lot of the work had already been done before Mr. Vail showed up in Farmville. Because his journal tells the first day he arrived and met at the Prince Edward Hotel on Main Street and talked to somebody, Mr. Churchill, I think was his name. He got his marching orders, I guess, from the railroad. But anyway, we know Vail, a lot of the work had already started before Vail got here. It really wasn't necessary for him to be here to see the trees cut down or the lodging built for the men to be in and so on. He got here in time to see what the contractors were doing. So the negatives allowed us to have that view into how it all came down chronologically. But one of his first entries into his journal says, wants me to go to High Bridge near Farmville and start that work, building a new one alongside the existing structure and making approach fields. March 15, 1913. Well, we know all during 1912 and early part of 13, work was already going on. There is his desk. Here's his second entry. He went and met Mr. Churchill. Tells what that happened. Made arrangements, got his instruments, his rods. He was informed contractors who he was going to be working with. March 23rd, he actually came to Farmville, spent the day in downtown Farmville. He was taking some walks around town, went to the dry goods store, grocery store, and so on. Went to church at the Baptist Church on Main Street, quite detailed. This tells basically from March 29th what he did first day, like on the job right there at his site. And as it went on, it told step by step what went on with and even talked about the weather. Warm yesterday, 65 degrees, while climbing up the field at West End. One of the men dumped a wheelbarrow of material over the edge, and a large chunk was slab. The cinder came down and hit him. He was a little bit bruised up from that. I mean, he told everything in that journal. Here in December of 1913, as the work was underway, they were building the abutments, and they had to bring dirt out. They had to bring dirt out closer to the river on both ends. They were going to shorten up the amount of bridge you have to build by adding dirt at each end. That would save construction costs. The steel was probably high. They were running low on funding. And to save money, rather than build so much bridge, they figured dumping up dirt, bring the tracks out further, we can build less bridge. So then when they took all this dirt and poured it out there, they had problems with it raining and snowing, and the landslides started. They determined that the soil was chalky and didn't hold together good, and so that was a problem they had to overcome. Here, he had written a thing where work was halted. Cumming County officials, sheriff, and health department came, closed them down, made everybody get smallpox shots. That was going around during that time. They had a night watchman there at High Bridge. That's his actual picture, Mr. Red. From some of the notes and things, we know that he was born between Cumberland and going down to his Powhatan. He was born on a farm down there in slavery. And when he had grown up and was older, and by that time they were building this bridge, he was given a job. One of them was night watchman, and his family lived nearby over by Sailor's Creek. And Bob was able to find out where Mr. Red was buried, which is right across from Sailor's Creek. Bob was even able to find his headstone, which is not a regular headstone like we look at today, but just a big rock. But the family knew which one was which. So he's kind of today over across from Sailor's Creek. But here's where it snowed last night. You can see from that picture, they worked even when it snowed. There's a picture of one of the envelopes. Steel erection starts, as you can see, more entries. I'm not going to read every one of them. Here is from Engineering News. The last couple of meetings we've talked about, there were 4 renditions of the early bridge. In other words, in 1853, they built the first bridge. 17 years later, the railroad realized that the weights and the amount of cars and the amount of the weight in each car and the engines themselves were getting bigger, and they needed to reinforce the bridge. So what they would do is they would come to the bridge in 1870 and added what they called the Fink Truss, which was shoring up the bridge so it wouldn't sag, I guess. Then, 16 years later, they had to beef it up again because the loads again had gotten bigger, the trains were getting bigger, and they put in more truss, and that was called the Pratt Truss. And then 15 years later, they had realized that that early bridge, which was built on brick piers, and the brick piers are still there, the train and all the weight and all the tonnage going over it had just about shook those piers to the point where some was starting to crumble. So finally the railroad decided enough of this every so many years. Let's put up one steel bridge, and we cut out all this patching up the old bridge. So, in the past meetings, we've talked about the 4 earlier bridges. Tonight, we're here to talk about the bridge that they built here in 1913, 1914. Here in this picture, the big long bridge, steel bridge you can see, but the posts, these what do I call those things? Piers. That is where the old bridge was. And when they built the new bridge, those piers still had the old tracks on it, and the train had to come through every day, a couple times a day. So they had to work around that train coming. They had to be aware of the train coming, and it was they were working like within 20 feet of the train, building a new bridge. Old bridge here, new bridge right there. But let me see if I got it. Okay. Here's our last meeting. I know Chris and a couple other people asked some of the definitions. I had to learn this from Bob. When they came to build a bridge, forget about it up here at the top, just look at it from here down. They have what they call the approaches at each end, and then the red part was called the deck bridge, the actual rails laid on that, and this blue right here was the steel girders that supported the deck bridge. And to keep the the bridge secure to the land, and to keep it from sinking, they built abutments at both ends. In other words, they put dirt here, then they had to build a concrete pad here and here, and to anchor those, they had to put these 55 to 60 foot, I can't think what those things are, piles in the ground so that the ends of the bridge wouldn't sink. And we're going to talk about those later. And then what you see there now, the steel zigzag things that hold the bridge up, they were called piers or bents. And they were built to support the bridge. And to support the piers, they had to build these, they have these yellow marks. They're the pedestals. So they had to dig holes, build the pedestals, secure them to the ground, then they had to put up the steel and then girders, and then lay the track and stuff up top. All that had been done. When they came along in 1913, 1914, they wanted the bridge to be 7 to 8 feet higher than the old bridge. So they had to build up where these 2 purple marks are. They had to put more dirt in there and pile it up so when the train came, it would be pretty level, just about 7 feet higher. So they had to go way back up each end of the track there, from the ends of the bridge, pile dirt in there and get that track so it would be fairly level. You know, a train has to be pretty level on the track. So that is explanations of the different terms we're going to talk about. Okay. So brief. What I did is, for the 4 preceding bridges, which was really one bridge with modifications, we call them 1, 2, 3, and 4. What we're calling the bridge set of now today, they call it the steel viaduct. And it was built in 1913, 1914, and this lasted 110 years, so the railroad got the money out of that investment. So the first thing they had to do when they got there to do the new bridge, of course, they would have had to survey where the tracks were going to go. Then they had to build the dirt up at each end to get it 7 feet higher. So that required digging a lot of dirt, bringing it down, and putting it where the new track was going to go. So they called that the building of the approaches. Here's a LiDAR map that Bob gave me, and you can see how that, the topo, you can see how they went back up here 1,800 feet up the track, about up to where Mike Rice's house is today, and brought 1,800 feet of dirt and piled it up on the west end of the Cumberland end. Well, they only had to do about 600 feet on the opposite end, but by bringing in this and this closer, it meant they had to build less of a steel bridge, which saved them money. In addition to that, okay. So here is a picture taken before they tore down this old bridge. This is at the Rice end down at the bottom, the Cumberland end up here. You can see the old bridge, 7 feet lower than the new bridge. I don't know exactly the explanation why, but that's how it is. I guess to give more room to the substructure here. But you can see where they're building the new bridge is, and you can see the track is going to be up here, and here's the old track. The train will come right along here on the right and go right there, and they're working right here. So you can see the difference in the height of the old bridge. Here's one of those texts that you can go back later and read. I'm not going to read it all to you, but that was building the approaches. But to do all that, they had to go up the tracks and have a steam shovel, and it actually would dig the dirt, put it on this flatbed car, and then it would haul it to where they needed to put the new dirt. And the car was made so it could flip the dirt off of one side or throw it on the other side. So that's pictures of them actually doing that. Let me show you something here that I noticed. When we got these new negatives and I was able to enhance them and blow them up bigger, we found detail that we didn't know we had. With this program, I can go in here, click right there, and see how it blew it up. If you look up under the steam shovel, there's a bunch of guys sitting up under there, evidently eating lunch or taking a break or whatever. But that's with these new softwares, we are able to see a lot more detail than we could even in 2005 when those books were printed. Anyway, go back to the record. Another LiDAR map, and looking at this up close, I believe this is the one. Let me see what it is. Yes, we were able to see that they came off of here, this track, and they built to where the cursor is going. There's a track built right there to go around High Bridge. And that was one of the tracks that they worked from. And you can still see the remains there today if you know where to look. There's a good picture of here. It shows, you can see where they built that mound of dirt up. The red mark is the actual river. And you can see over on this side, on the right side, they didn't have to pile as much dirt as it did over here. Anyway, so then I met with people from High Bridge, and we wanted to know, well, where did they dig that dirt up? Well, there it is in the gray right there. We figure you can see that depression. I darkened it so you can see it, but right up there now is the parking lot there. But you can see where they dug out that bank and hauled that dirt up in here and dumped it right in here. Okay. And they called that that would be the western end, I believe. Anyway, let's see. Here's the eastern end right here. Anybody that's been down there today, they know they're building a new tourist house, I guess you could say, where they park, ranges, and so on, the bathrooms are. Well, it looks like, to me, they dug on this side of the track right there, and they only moved a small amount of dirt up that way. And when they tore down the old bridge, they had a junkyard over here where they piled all the steel up. And I was told that later they dismantled it, cut it up and so on, and hauled all that steel away, probably back to Roanoke. But you can see where this track came in right here. You can just barely see it. But today we feel like that right here was where they dumped the old bridge, and today I think that's where they built the tourist zone. We went over with the High Bridge people, the topo maps, and it looked like most places it was either real low or real high. There was one place that was the same level as the track, and that's where we think they built the new tourist center. So anyway, there's just more maps. Okay. To house the people, they built a camp over here. This is the Cumberland end, this is the Rice end. These pictures were taken from the old bridge. You can see right here they had to build a railroad track from up on the main line down into this bottom. They had to get the materials to build these cabins. They had to get material to build the cement plant. And they had, of course, get the machinery to dig the holes. They had to bring in the actual steel bridge from Roanoke in big parts and assemble it. All of that meant that they had to come off the big track and get down in this bottom with railroad cars. So there's the track right there. Again, something we weren't able to see until we were able to go in here and get a close-up of these. But there again, you can see there's the railroad track right there. Notice where they cut down all these trees. We later figured out that they took these trees that they cut down and used them in the construction process. I think I have that picture here tonight. But anyway, you can see how many houses were up in here. And they had giant houses. It looks like 4 or 6 people could have stayed in each cabin. One of them was an office. And back over here is where the Smith farm is, and that it looks like maybe where the contractors went.
Could you go back to the slide that showed all the pilings? I think I can help you on that. It showed it for a flash just before.
That.
No, there was one that you showed and it had, it looked like a wooden, that you were under a wooden bridge.
And I showed it tonight.
Yeah, it just showed it just
Okay.
right in there. No, it was more back to what you just showed.
Okay. We will
Maybe
get
it was one right past that. This was a good picture of it. You could just go a little, you may go a little bit more. Try another one.
okay.
Right there.
Okay, yes.
What they would do is, where the railroad was going to go, they would build that up to the track level,
Yes.
and then the cars with the dirt would just dump it and cover it,
Yeah.
and just keep building up. Because I've got a picture of where they did through my farm. I'm on the Lynchburg Beltline, and one of the dinghies crashed through that, and they're all standing around with this dinghy that was pulling it, laying down on its side, and where they put the concrete culvert for the creek. And they built this over, and they were dumping all the dirt to fill in. I expect that's what they did at the end of the bridge to get her to the concrete end.
Yes.
They would build that out and dump it all off.
Yes. Let me introduce a guest tonight, Ken Towler. He lives up on this side of Lynchburg. And he saw some of the postings I was putting on Facebook, and we connected over the internet. And he shared with me that his great aunt married Mr. Willis Bale that took all these pictures. And from that, I learned through Ken and another man in Lynchburg that Mr. Bale had come to Lynchburg and built a a bridge up there in 1906, 1907 across his farm property.
Yeah, he built two.
Okay? Over Beaver Creek.
Beaver Possum. Beaver, when they built it, it was curved. It was the highest bridge in Virginia at the time.
Okay.
And Possum Creek, and he spelled it Oppossu, if you look at it, because we didn't have the road signs. But he married my great aunt Belle, and the first funeral I remember is when they brought her body back to be buried on the farm. He was buried up there, and she was buried here. And then I was on eBay, and all of a sudden these pictures started going up, and I started recognizing family. And I'm like, wait a minute, I've got these pictures, because I actually have some prints that were matted that Willis Vale had done, given to my grandparents, and I found them in the attic. I've got one of High Bridge, which I'm going to give to them in a time that is going to come this way. But the guy started talking, said, yeah, my friend found these things up in Pennsylvania, and he knew what to do with them. So he called me, and I went up and got them and said they were in dynamite cases. They were so messed. Oh, it survived. Nobody was afraid to fool with them. But they were packed in dynamite cases, and he flew them back in a private plane in the rear of it with all that weight. And he offered them to me. He said, well, your family, if you want them all, I'll sell them to you for $7,000. And I'm like, $7,000? And I had no idea what was in it. I wish I had done it. Because some of the stuff was ours. I've got one little print right here about something. There was one called Auntie in the Wash. And it was a black woman with two black hands. She got the laundry on her head. And a sepia tone, the first one, original, went for $300, and I think the negative went for like $800, because it was Americana. So this stuff started going up, and you look, Gulfport, Mississippi. I know what caught me was one of them. There was my grandfather laying in front of a Model A, and there was Uncle Willis, and Aunt Belle, and the rest of the family, and they were going to drive through California in their Model A for their honeymoon.
1922.
Yeah, I mean, we were like, dude, what? So the work they did exactly was through, I've got stuff showing them putting in the concrete pedestals, so there was no railroad, anything there. And they're all laid out, and they're all exact. I mean, you sit there for 1907 to be doing this, and have the perfection they do, and those trestles are sort of, like, mine are double track for that. Norfolk Southern, the VP of maintenance, way told me they were so overbuilt that, now they've been in use over 100 years, and mine's still a main line. That he says when they start to show stress, they will just move the track to the other side of the bridge and keep going. That's how well those things were built.
And High Bridge has got,
High Bridge is the same way.
yes, we're only using one side of it now, but if you go down and look, you can see where they could have put another track. And I'm sure people wonder sometimes, why they put it way over on that side instead of down the middle.
Midland, be double track.
Yes, but yes, and we have a bunch of pictures that I have found out of that group that you could have bought. I've got them now, and I put them on an SD card and gave them to you tonight, so you've got 485 more.
I actually got a bunch. I don't know what I spent. I spent more than I should have. But they're still in the boxes where they're shipped to me, where I've got to hopefully this winter. Because after it all happened, I got cancer and went through all that crap, and I'm good.
Right.
But I don't know what all I'll find in it, because if the price was halfway decent, I bought
Yeah.
it. Just bring it home.
I still want to picture that Model A and her and him at the car.
I got a print of that. It's just like because I showed it to the guys on the railroad, and I stuck it somewhere in the house where the light wouldn't get to it. I know the box. I can't find it. It's in the house. Because we made copies of the railroad, how they built it, because there was a lot more construction pictures in mine of how they did it. Like the railroad there, they probably bought the steel in there, built, and they had what looked like an upside-down bridge that they would roll out as they did it, and pull those legs up, and set a leg and bolt it, and then bring another one up, and then put the cross pieces on it.
Yes.
I mean, they were men.
I'm not sure can't remember if it's on this or not, but
Because what I've got, you could take and put with yours to show some of the stuff on.
yeah.
Because it had to be built the same way,
Yeah.
a couple of years difference.
Let me, pull that up. I got nowhere. I got it right here. Scale photo. Yes. I put all of the Willis-Vale stuff in a separate one so I could keep up with it, but, we'll run through these right quick. There's one of the actual barns on the property, and that may be where the slab was stored. We don't know. I'm sure they have more than one barn up there, but, let me see. I'll go back. Go to this, go to slideshow, current slide. There's Willis-Vale. There's his sister, Evelyn, and Willis. She evidently traveled with him too, because she's in some of the pictures. There are some of the family pictures. Ken's family. There's more on a picnic, and that's Mr. Willis-Vale. Here's a picture that Bob and them didn't originally buy, but we were able to find on the internet. That's Willis-Vale there. It's one of the work sites, so got the pictures of the people. And that was in 1907, so that would be in Lynchburg.
I may own that negative.
Right, okay, well, there's a picture taken out near California somewhere, and you can see him in that, and if you go in, there's a string. He's got a string going right up there to the camera. The boat's tied there, and that's a string going over to his camera. And supposedly that's him and his sister. And then the sister, I guess, is his wife.
It's not his bill.
Okay, his wife sitting there in the boat. Okay. Let me see here. I'll get in and show a few more right quick here. Okay. There he is. If you look real close right there, the string is in his finger. There's the string in his finger. There again, there he's got his finger, got a string wrapped around it. That's him. Here's some family photos. There he is at a desk somewhere. Kind of give you an idea of where he was brought up. Philadelphia's here, New York's up here.
Yeah.
Quakertown right there near between Philadelphia and New York. Right there. Yep. Yeah.
Because he was in Princeton.
That's where he went to school when he was young. They restored the house. Here is supposedly the house that he grew up in, or one of them. This was a store that was built next to his house. It belonged to Mr. J.D. Trout. Do you know whether they were kin or anything?
I don't know.
The house is almost built right up on the store. There's another picture. There's a better picture of the back of his house. He took these pictures evidently. Picture taken out front. Got some information there. There's a better picture of it. I enhanced it a little bit. There's a picture of the storefront in his house over here to the left. Yeah, Quakertown, New Jersey. Store in the house again. Another picture of. There's a buggy out there in front of his home and a store to the right. Some child at the yard, a death, that's him, but there is a home today, and I think that's the rear of the house. Evidently somebody has restored it, and it may be open to the public. I don't know, I doubt it, but there's a barn again. There's a picture of his house he took. This is a picture we just made up of him and a camera. That's not actually him or his camera, but that depicts what it would have looked like at the time. A depiction of his journal, and then him again. That's a close-up of his journal, all handwritten. And then, as he went to different jobs, railroad evidently would have an office for him and some other assistants there. Looked like in High Bridge, they had 4 guys that worked in the office with him. There's a negative, and there I reversed the negative and made it into a picture, and you can see some of it's evidently either railroad people or somehow people that worked in the office with him there.
The first stuff I saw of his was blue tone when he was there in Southwest Virginia. Then it became safety tone, and then it became black and white. And he was moving along with, as photography advanced,
Yeah.
you could track it.
And when he got up to about 1,900 and some pictures, they stopped. And Bob Flippin and I talked about it. That's probably when he went to cellulose film, and there were no more tape in with glass negatives. So that's why we don't have any glass negatives much past these average. But they're just, and I just told you all about this. The numbers ran from number 1 to number 1863. And glass plates from 1850s through about 1920. And then they started going to plastic film or cellulose. And that's probably why he no longer had glass. There's an example of one of his envelopes. Some of his early envelopes you can see, I had a hard time figuring out what that said. It was coal tipple on Big Creek. Got the date and so on. I tell you that was negative number 4. I didn't know where coal tipple was. I was told by Bob. The trains, the coal people would get the coal to here. The train would walk under it, and then the coal would fall in the cars. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And this is how I found all those extra 485 pictures. These were on the internet for sale, and I could click on them, and it would blow them up big. And I had the ability with this software to capture that picture. So I captured 485 more pictures, negatives of the sale for free. There's another picture of a coal tipple that was on the internet. So then I wanted to know what states he went in and so on. Got this map, and I said, all right, where'd he go? He was up here in New Jersey, right there with a little dotted. Here are the states that his negatives date back to, that we know that he made a record. He was up and down this coast, spent a lot of time down in Louisiana, Mississippi, and then he went down the West Coast. Took a lot of pictures of him on these 3 states. Between 1890 and 1915, they're the states that he was in that we can track by his notes. So I said, all right, which state did he take the most pictures? The ones that we know of, 154 were in Virginia, and then as you can see, they narrow them down to just 1 in South Carolina. But we now have a total of 472 copies out of the 1,863. So we have 25% of the negatives known to have been taken. As time goes on, we might come up with some more. There's a picture on your home place, and this is a lady that was married up near Lynchburg, on his property, and she dates when she was born, when she died. And we figured in 1922 they got married, so they were both at like almost 40, 41, 42 years old when they got married. And I asked Ken, I said, why did it wait so long? Maybe he was running all over the country. You told me maybe they were Quakers and they had certain traditions. We don't know, but that's where she's buried up. She's still buried up in Lynchburg. I don't know, it was you or the other fellow up there gave me
and she was buying any photograph of Lynchburg, and I found out I was actually competing with her and stuff, Nancy Marion. And she got, so as you can see, the button at the end,
Yes.
you don't realize how large they were going in the ground before they covered up with dirt.
Yes.
I had the iron plate, said 1907 in reverse, where they would shove it into the abutments,
Right.
the culverts and stuff they used, so it would say the year it was built. And I found that in the garage farm because my great grandfather used it in the foundation of the house when he added on to it, where Willis and them lived. They lived in the house on the farm. They rented a house there and built their encampment around the house.
Okay.
And they had guys living in wall tents during the winter. And they had a wooden cook shack. It's amazing what they got done with the technology they had.
Yes. I was interested in these, I'm going to show you, because it looks so much like they're building High Bridge.
It's the same practice. And so that's where, on his negatives and everything, he actually has an OPPOSSUM, and there's a state road sign to a Possum Creek Road, and they actually have the OPP, and people go, I guess that's spelled right. That's what they did.
Anyway, I was able to get like 7 of these pictures, and you'll see that they're very close to looking like they were taken here at High Bridge. I took the one before this and blew it up, and then you can see more detail there. And there is the thing you're talking about. It will go out over it and then lift these, what they call bents or the
Well, that was
steel.
the part of the truss and stuff, because the beds normally they were concrete, but they would do that, and they had, it's hard to see on the right-hand side of that, they had a little steam generator or whatever to move it in and out and stuff.
Yes.
And then I've got pictures from Beaver Creek of all that steel just laid on the ground where they had laid it out, where they come and lift it up that way.
And they did the same thing here at High Bridge. And we've got pictures of that. And again, we can take this and like zoom right in. We've been
That house right there is still there,
right
and
there.
the family just raised it up a foot or two, put a little more of a basement under it, and that family still owns it.
Right. But these were of interest to us here. There I colorized it. There's another one. There I blew it up. Where was your
It's like,
your farm or something?
now we were back, that's looking east. To the right is Eastbrook Road that goes out, goes to 460 and 501. I actually baled hay in that bottom. So, and I walk up to the edge of it, I don't go out on it.
Right.
You don't do that stuff. But I
Right.
had friends that came to visit me walking on that.
Yeah.
They saw the train go by and they hopped over after the train and realized they did that Indian comes on the train.
Mm.
So, but yeah, it's the farmer that had that plowed the creek to keep it straight, so he wouldn't lose any land because he raised gardens down there to sell at community market.
Mm.
And they watched him have mules down in the creek. Keep it straight.
There. So there's another good picture of it. Another good picture of it.
You see it? So they did that with the dinghies.
What are you talking about now?
Let's see, they had a little steam, like
Yeah.
that's Little Beaver Creek. That's right at 501 at the city limits,
Okay.
going between Lynchburg and Rustburg. It's on the Falwell property.
Okay.
And then they would just dump that dirt. See the little dinghy up
Yeah.
there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one of them that crashed through, and they got all the crew around.
Yep. You see the men climbing all around up in there. This right here was a creek right
Yeah.
there. Okay.
That was Little Beaver.
Yeah. And if you ever been to
Big Beaver
Lynchburg,
has a trestle over here.
if you've been to Lynchburg, you've been over Beaver, you've driven over Beaver Creek, coming down from Oxford Furnace Hill, going to Lynchburg, right at the bottom is Little Beaver Creek.
That's Big Beaver, and then where the Okaway campground was, is go towards, that's Possum Creek.
Yes.
And Little Beaver will feed into Possum before it gets there.
And just after you go past Moore's Country Store, it's Possum Creek. And right now, they've got a great big, like a billboard in the highway, puts messages up there. And that's, you know, where you're at Possum Creek then.
And that's CSX railroad tracks on that river.
Here's another picture that is blown up. And amazingly, in some of these pictures, like this piece of equipment here, also appears in High Bridge. So we figured that the same contractors that probably built Lynchburg ended up over here at High Bridge. And there's the same equipment, or duplicate of the equipment, one or the other, but it looks like High Bridge up there. The equipment looks like High Bridge, and it's probably the same contractors.
The train came from Farmville to Concord,
Yes.
and then it went down to the James River. It's called 6 Mile Bridge, came up to Personal Island, came through downtown Lynchburg, and then climbed, which is all pipe now, and it's a stone carved out tunnel that they went through, and then would go back there to the main line in Forest. So in 1907, so they didn't have all those full coal trains go down to the river and have to pull their way out. They built what they call the Lynchburg Belt Line, and that started at Concord and swung around to keep them from going down to the river and actually connected back there in the Forest. And that became the main line. And eventually it was gotten over totally, especially when they merged with Southern, because that was a big point for them. Because in my farm, there's a last grade when you're going east, as they pull towards Concord, it's the last major grade between there and Tidewater. And after they hit that, they just roll.
Right.
They would regret taking these tracks up the passenger now.
So that's another picture of it up close, and that picture taken right from your farm, right?
Yeah, that's, unfortunately, the guy who was baling the hay decided he the guy that was doing beagles, and he fenced it all in and let it go up.
There's Moore's Country Store. Anybody that's not familiar with that, what your place is essentially kind of behind here.
My cousin's actually on the farm right behind it.
Okay.
Good cheeseburgers.
Right. So his farm is over here behind the store, and Possum Creek is right up here, just right up the road from it. There's a sign. You see, if you go all the way up here to the top of the hill and turn, it'll take you up to what's
Eastbrook.
well.
Oxford Furnace Road takes you up to Eastbrook.
Yes.
You turn right, you'll go under Beaver Creek Trestle and then drive to the side of
So
Possum.
if you go all the way to the top of the hill and that new bridge going over the James River,
Oh, yeah.
what's the town up there?
Oh, Amherst, Madison.
Amherst, yes. So it's just before you get to that intersection. There's the sign, there's the Possum Creek signs right along here, Moore's Country Stores down there. This is another one taken from your land.
Yeah, that's where I bail.
And there's a picture with, I guess, your hay baler.
That's me bailing.
Yeah, okay. And there's that. So they're the pictures that
You have any pictures of the railroad track where we used to cross 460 in the Concord area, where the Dollar General store is now?
Yeah.
Is there any, you have you ever seen the pictures of that?
Yeah, that was right at Moody's Lake, when we had Moody's there. I remember going there as a kid, because the passenger trains didn't come to my farm until just before Amtrak. And I remember seeing the Jays go by there, because they were going to go down to the station, Union Station in downtown Lynchburg. And then eventually they built the station on Woodall Road, which is now an office. And the passenger switched, because my friends would take it, come down here. My aunt would take, she went to Longwood, so she would take the train back and forth between Longwood and Lynchburg.
Yeah. And I'm sure Willis went over High Bridge,
Yeah.
running back and forth even before he knew he was with the job.
Yeah.
So, right. Back what we were doing, I'm going to throw this up here on the big. They cut those trees down and made these trestles. I guess we could left off. There's a picture of the camp, and another good picture of the camp. Up until just recently, we haven't ever seen these camp pictures before. here's where they would have bring the loads of dirt, and these trestles were built up, and they would dump dirt off the sides of them and cover them up. Here's a water tower that was there, and the Smith farm would have been over here in the background. So all they had to do when they got out and work on, go over to spend the night with the Smiths, would just go right through the woods now. I'm sure there was a road. There the harvested trees turned into a trestle. There's another picture of them. Okay. Next, one of the first things they had to do was build these concrete pedestals. And to build those, they had to dig a hole. Had to be all the way down to bedrock in most cases, or either dig a deep, deep hole and fill it full of rocks, I guess. But from those technical magazines, we have all these drawings that show the number of trestles, number of, showing where each pedestal was, and so on. All that's been saved, and now we have it in our video form. The piers, not piers, piles. They had to make those piles, and some of them, they were from 40 to 60 feet, and they had to build a skeleton out of wire and I guess you'll say, what is the iron rods they call it now? Rebar. And then they would have these long skeletons of it, and they would have these wooden bins, and they would lay that skeleton in there and cover them up with cement. Then they had to let them cure a little bit, and they took them, laid them out in the sun, and they had to lay it there approximately 30 to 60 days to cure in the sun before they could start driving them in the ground. One of the interesting things, and we had to talk with the High Bridge people about this, one of the actual set of pedestals falls in the water down there. You know, they had to be every so many feet. And on pedestal number 10, the two pedestals are in the water, and you'll probably see a picture, see right there. That corner and that corner of it are actually standing in the water. There you see a good picture of it. There it is. That's just how it fell, and so they built this pieces of concrete in between them two to keep trash from going away and keep it sturdy there in the water. But people often ask about why they put one in the water when that's just how it was, every so many feet.
Maybe the water may not have been there then.
How it was.
Because rivers.
Yes, but it was from what even the early
Kind of between the pedestals. I don't remember seeing that on any other place.
Right.
They probably rerouted the creek while they built it,
Yeah.
and they put the creek back where it belonged, where the river was.
Here's how it is today, and you can see the old pier was built right there. That was offset from the wall. The new one sets in the water today. Here are the actual piers that held these pieces of steel up, and they're the two pieces of concrete that kind of kept trash from getting hung up in between. That's what I was told. More of the details there. This was called the orange peeler, and it would be dropped down from the crane and it would scoop up dirt, and then it would drop the dirt over here. They had to dig, what was 42, so then 84 holes like this, and you had to make 84 of those concrete piers for the steel to set on. So that was one of the first things they had to do. And here's some pictures of them actually digging the holes. There's the hole there, there's the hole there. And the orange peel will come down and scoop the dirt out. Here's another hole being dug, and you can see some of the men. This man right here on the right, we were able to identify him as the concrete man that was overseeing all the concrete work. But you can also see the cranes and the cement buckets. Cement was brought there in these big buckets and dumped in the hole. And they had a little train. There was a track running from one end of the construction site to the other, and that little train ran up and down it, and it pulled materials up and down wherever they needed it, mainly sand and concrete to the construction site. We'll see more of that. Here's a picture taken from the Rice end, looking back over the Cumberland on this end. If I'm right here, yes. And they built the new bridge. You can see where they built the track to come down in here, and then here is where the new bridge is going to go, right here. And so that little railroad track had to be right in the right place, so as they built it, the track wouldn't be in place of the two piers that they were building every so many feet. And there they are hoisting up one of those piles. And we'll get a better look here. So looking from the Cumberland end down towards the Rice end, you can see they had a little road down through there. They had to build a concrete plant in the bottom there. And they had to dig the holes, they had to produce the concrete to make those piers, and they also had to put an abutment at each end to hold the bridge to the land mass. And here's looking from the Rice end back to Cumberland. You can see where they're coming on down to get digging those holes. And here's a part of the dirt that they hauled in down the east end to bring the abutments in closer. There's a good picture of the orange peel. There's men working on it there. They had 4 different cranes there at the work site. This one was partially metal and partially wood, according to Bob Flippin. There again, from the original bridge, 1, 2, 3, and 4, pretty much the track laid right on top of these piers originally. But then, like I said, we had to keep coming in here and building stronger and stronger supports, and then the track kept getting raised up too. So the tracks ran long up here. You can see the men up there sitting on the tracks watching, I guess. And this is what they call the substructure. Here they actually building the pedestal out in the water, it looks like. In every picture you'll see, if not right in the picture, you'll see probably a part of boilers. They had a lot of boilers, and that's what supplied the power. Boilers or gasoline-powered engines, possibly, but there were there's no electricity at the site. 1939 before they got electricity down High Bridge. They were doing this work in 1913, 1914. The other interesting thing I thought from looking at all the slides, you don't see a truck or a car. No modern trucks or cars. All horse, wagons, mules. People walked around, I guess. But also, I don't see any women in any of the pictures at the construction site. But in order to make the cement for the cement plant, they had to build a barge, and on that barge they had to put oil to move the boat around, and also at this end of the bridge thing right here, which I'll blow up for us, you'll see they have a pump. And what this thing did was it sucked up sand from the river and blew it down into a trench, and the sand would go down to the bottom of this barge and the river water would drop back into the river right here. And it appears to be a boiler on both ends because you can see steam shooting out from each one of these boilers. So that was what I call hell of a contraption. But there's a close-up of one of the boilers on one end of it. You can also see one of these concrete pedestals had been built by then. Those books back there, and now there's videos, have all these technical drawings of how they built the pedestals, how they drove the pilings in the ground, everything you want to know, how much weight will control, size, all the dimensions of everything. Now I'm sure these were printed up and given to the contractors to go by. Last meeting, Chris asked about these tall pedestals. Well, the yellow represents the tall pedestals. And what they did is they had a pile of dirt in this green triangle and cover them up. So today, if you go in there, all you see is the tip tops of these two. There are 41 of these starting at the Rice end and going to the Cumberland end. There's 41 of them, and there's a left and a right. So there's 84 altogether. Here's at the Cumberland end, I believe. I put it in some of the writings. Number 41 and 42. So yes, they start everything but the construction started at the Rice end and it worked towards Cumberland. So the first pedestal up here, Rice end is number 1. These last ones here are 41 and 42. There's a better picture of them from the side, like his number 41, left and right, then his 42. And you can see how much dirt they had coming out to cover that thing up. And then you go in there, all you can see is the tip top of that and the tip top of these. Here's the old bridge in the background. So basically they were working in the shadows of the original bridge. Here's where he mentions in one of his journals they had a landslide after hard rain. There's a good picture of it. We, okay. See that man right there. I don't know if that's Willis Vale or one of the contractors, but he's climbed up on there because all this dirt right here has collapsed and come down. I think it was a winter rain or winter snow and the land got squishy and it caved in, so they were constantly working against that problem while they were there too. But let's see, go this way. Here's where they were building one of the abutments, and you can see where they've hauled in a lot of dirt in this picture. This is a little track I told you that ran from one end of the construction site down across the river and over to the right side. That little engine that is built, if you notice, it's a narrow gauge. You know, we had the regular standard size track, but they also had a narrow gauge, and these little engines and things would run up and down that track carrying materials. They were the narrow gauge, and then we talked about it last meeting. They had 2 rails, and then they put another little rail in the middle, and the narrow ones could run on just 2 of the rails, or when the big trains would get on the track, it would be using the outside rails. So that's probably something that had gotten overlooked for years. But anyway, here's this little donkey train backed up with a bucket of cement. And they're probably building pedestal number 41 or 42, and now they are going to dump the cement down in these forms. Here they are. March of 1914, still digging the holes for these pedestals, and you can see snow on the ground, snow on the track. They're still working, still digging holes. Here's a good picture of the track that they built down the bottom. See it running where they laid it. Then later when they built the track, it would be laying right under there. But once they put these supports in here, then the train couldn't go through anymore, but it was there to haul materials back and forth. And you can see the 3-rail track right there. Big train on the outer two, little train ran on this one inside. Good picture of the old bridge here on the white concrete bricks and the new bridge coming along. Instead of building the cage-looking thing like they did in Lynchburg, they built this. They would come out here on the first section and they'd drive this big crane out there, and they would use that to lift these things stand up. And then once they got that segment complete, then they would pull the train forward another section, and they would do the same thing over and over and over till they got to the end over there by Cumberland. And the whole time they're doing all of this, the train's coming through a couple times a day on the old one.
Can you blow up the very top of it where the cross piece is? Blow up that and see if it's on the, see on the one closest, then look at the next one, see the hole, and go down, or look right in there.
Yes.
See the hole right there?
Yes.
They had a guy who would go in that, so when they did the rivets, he would be in there as they hammered those rivets. Imagine, it probably had to be deaf when it was over.
Yes.
Because to be in it, because it's a sealed thing just with a hole big enough for a man to get in.
Yep.
And he would go in there while they were hammering the rivets, and he'd be on the other side. And it's,
And they were walking around up there on top with no OSHA shoes, no straps, no nothing, just regular work boots. Walking around up there like it was go on the ground. Here's a shot of them taken from the Cumberland Inn, looking down towards Rice, and you can see where they're digging all these holes to build pedestals. There's one of the holes they dug. You know, you kind of look like they're small, but look at the hole they had to dig compared to the size of the men. Dig that thing down to bedrock, then they put some rocks in there, then the cement plant was right there, and the little train would get the buckets of cement and bring them to the site. This big crane would pick the buckets up and they would dump it in here until they had a wooden frame, I guess you call it, and then they would gradually build a frame up and keep pouring concrete in it until they got it just right. Here's a picture of where the train track was coming down from a spur line coming down off the main line over Cumberland Inn and coming down in there. And see, all this track had to be here so they could bring the concrete materials to build a concrete plant. They also had to bring in all the concrete mix, the stone, all the steel had to be brought down in here. All that had to come down off the side of the old bridge area and piled it in the right places so when they got ready to use it, it would be right where they needed it, right where they wanted it. All was planned overhead, I'm sure. In some of these pictures, you can see the actual men up in these things like you're talking about. I don't know if it's going to show up in this one. This is the actual concrete man, Henry Howell, and these things have been built from like 8 feet in the ground to up this high. And the purpose of these were to have these 2 big bolts, and that's where the steel would mount to these supports, to the base. And he had to make sure they were perfectly level.
that's what amazed me.
Yes.
To have that perfect, and then to roll those pre-made steel
Yeah.
frames down,
Yeah.
and be perfect.
Yes. Everything was coming from this plant where they made the bridge. It's like a giant erector set. And they said there. When the steel comes, it's gonna fit right on it. If you feel it,
The before now,
yeah, it could have been,
the technology they had to make that so exact
yeah.
is just unbelievable.
And in this picture here, you can see that the steel has already started to arrive. And he's got to make sure everything is perfectly level. And these bolts all fall in the right place.
Might be using that hammer to listen for the sound of the concrete that emits when he hits the concrete. You can tell how hard it is to have it.
Yeah.
By
The
the
whole
noise.
bridge probably built with 6-foot pole and wooden roof. Sure, that's right.
Well, Jimmy, was it the last meeting that you showed the guys had those hand things where they were shaving off the
Yeah.
tops and making it perfectly
They
level?
had chisels and hammers to level that thing out just right. And then you can see the broom right there. As they would chip it away, then they'd sweep it off a little piece of a broom. And they had to do that on 84 of these things. Now, 84 had to be in exactly the right place. So there it is, there they are in the picture. See all those little hand tools they had, all that had to be shaved and just right. And then the, primitive tools, basically, considering what we use today, but they got it done.
Yeah. Ours were done by the Italians, so I wonder if the Italians came over
Yeah,
to this bridge.
I don't know. No mention has been made of who they were.
Yeah. So we
So
looked many times hoping to find where the wine bottles were disposed of.
some of them are probably up in that hole up there. Probably need to drink time they got up there. I know they need to drink time to come out of there. Driving the piles, so here's all the information of the piles. We're not going to read it tonight, but you can go online and read it. Here they are building these skeletons, and you can see metal wire, heavy metal wire, and rebar going down the middle of them. They were anywhere from 40 to 60 feet long. These men had to assemble probably, I'm guessing, 60 to maybe 80 of these things. And then they had to put them in these, there's a close-up of them building it. These troughs right here, there were ladies, and all these troughs, see them with all that. And after they poured the concrete, they would lay a board over it so they could go ahead and move over to the next one and the next one. Well, after all that dried, they would take them and lay them out in the yard. And they had a cure anywhere from 30 to 60 days in the sun. Luckily, as you can see from the date from this negative, that was August. So they laid it in August and September to cure. So they did have some heat. So it didn't take so long. If you look in the background here, you can see some of that trestle where they want to bring that dirt out and dump it off under the side. But look at the primitive tools they were using. There they are laying out in the sun drying. They don't look too big right there, but when you talk about 40 to 60 feet, they were right big. And here some of them are, we think, laying in a pile down here, curing up. And right along here is where they're going to build a new bridge on this side. And these would go at each end of the bridge. They'll be driven down into the ground, and then a concrete slab poured over top of them. And then the bridge would be built over that, and they would keep the bridge from shimmying left to right when the train came over. There'd be a platform to connect the land to the bridge, basically. There's another picture of that. Here you can see, I don't know what the date is on this, but you can look in and then you can see that where the road and the tracks and all that were down here being built. They had a little temporary bridge coming over there. It was quite a lot of work just setting up the infrastructure, I guess you'd call it. All that had basically before Bagel arrived. Here's one of the pile drivers. It might have been the only pile driver, I'm not sure. But they would move the thing around. This is, I think this is the east end, the rice end. And that they would drag one of these concrete things up. You can see it right in the picture there. They are laying there. They're going to be stood up in this real tall thing, and then it's going to be hoisted, stood up in that thing, and then up the top is going to be a giant weight that's going to drop down on it. And every time it hit it, the pile would go down 1 to 3 inches. So sometimes it took days just to drive one of those things in, and they had hundreds of them to drive in the ground. So, and you can see the steam boiler right there, and that thing was used to hoist things up and down. It wasn't until we were able to blow these pictures up that we actually see men standing up inside of there, probably getting the thing just right before they started driving it down. But look right here. There they are up in there, way up in that thing. All that was good that we were able to get these pictures and blow them up like this, because a lot of detail was never realized when we were looking at that little book. So when you get it like this, you can see a whole lot more. And we know this is on the rice end here, and we know that's Willis Bagel there with the straw hat on. You agree? Yeah. And all the pictures this way, he has that straw hat on, and he's always shown wearing a suit and tie, and so on, looking like he's the boss. But there they are driving that thing down. Here's where the new track, there's the old track. The train would come through here a couple times a day, and here they are doing this work that close to the train. But here's where they're building their abutment, and they're driving these concrete tiles down in the ground to support what's going to be the abutment. There he is supervising. We know he didn't take all the pictures because he's in this picture, and he's obviously not pulling the string in that picture. So somebody else there with him evidently had the capability to push the button for him. But some of the pictures, he has his back turned, so he probably doesn't even know that he was having his picture taken exactly. But here they are down in one of the holes, and driving the pedestals. And here's the thing, right, came right down, and they had all these drills and things. It's amazing how they were able to dig those holes out and do all that work with the primitive tools they had compared to now. Here is some of the piles. As that thing beat them down the ground, some of them didn't last. They broke open, and you can see here's one that broke off, and you see the steel rods in there where it broke. But here is the platform. I'm not sure which end, but there's where they've driven. Looks like probably 20 or 30. Those things are 40 to 60 feet in the ground, and you can see what damage it done to them. But still, that's good enough, because from here they're going to build a great big giant square box or form around it, and then they're going to pour concrete, and all this would have been covered up. And by pouring concrete all of that, it would make it one giant solid piece. There's where they're driving the pile drivers. Not a real good picture, but there it is. 60-foot pile, heavy weight up the top, and here are the men down below working. There's a good picture of, this is the Cumberland end, and you can see all the piles are there. And they're running the pile driver with the, you can see they're pulling it up trying to get it straight up, and this, boiler is furnishing the power for that. Here they are up here on the top, working moving the dirt around and so on. And over in the background, you can see the office. And over here is where the cabins were. So we know from the pictures where the cabins were, and we know where the cement plant was from the pictures too. But there's a close-up of them. Men right up on that thing, working just like that. You can see where they had barrels of water to keep going into the boiler to keep steam going. There's a close-up of the piles, and this would be the Cumberland end here, I believe. And as they're building the platform for the abutment on this end. And as you see, they use mules, donkeys, whatever they had there, horses in some cases, to pull these giant tubes up from the bottom and stand them up in there. And there's another picture of it. You can see the men sitting down here on the bridge watching. There they are again, blowing up a little bit, and you can see it. So you can see how much it's sticking up and would later be covered with concrete. This would be where the platform is going to be. There's a close-up of the horse. There are the men again at the pile. There's a close-up. So building the abutments, this is where they have got all the piles in the ground now, and you can see they built a concrete form to pour the concrete in. They built a special pad, I guess you would call it, where the concrete would be lifted up on the top, and then it would pour down and go and fill that square up. And then they would have a flat piece of concrete there for the track to come across. And I think we have this close up down in the hole. See how big that thing was? Look at the little man standing right there. He's not much taller than those piles, and all that concrete had to be filled in there. And it was hauled up there, a huge bucket of it at a time. So there it is. They had some kind of a track they built, and it would be pulled up there, and then I guess you hit the lever or whatever, it would turn loose, and the concrete would go in and fill that box up. And you can see here in the background, over there, there's a tilt car still dumping dirt. This temporary trestle would be covered up with dirt. So you can see how high that thing was up off the ground and how much dirt they had all in there. There they are pouring concrete. There's another picture. There's a man getting ready to probably cut loose. These things right here probably had concrete in them, and they were pulled up that track. And then there was pulled the thing, cement went down. Okay, steel fabrication. And you can see here, we'll get a better picture. The bridge, from what we can gather, was built in Roanoke, Virginia, which is basically base for Norfolk and Western, or the Southern Railroad at the time. That's where they built the steel. There's a picture on the inside of the plant where they would cut each individual piece. Bear in mind, it couldn't be but so big. Each piece couldn't be but so big because it was going to have to go on a railroad car, come from Roanoke to Farmville, and then down there, and then it's going to have to go down that little side track. So it must have been a lot of car fulls of pieces coming down the line, but there's a place in Roanoke, and each bridge got one of these, what I call ID tags, was put on there, and it tells that the bridge was built by Roanoke in what year. Also, like Ken was telling us, they had this thing where they press into the concrete on each bridge, and it would tell what year the bridge was finally constructed. get a drone and go in there and fly up high enough to see that that's still there today. Might have been your son. Yeah, you, okay, did you fly?
with the camera.
Camera, okay, didn't use the drone, okay. I had several people helping me with pictures, and they weren't allowed to use drones down there on state property, but we got a couple pictures we needed anyway. But here's where the steel would come in, come down the track to this bottom, and there's a little track at the top of it that ran from one end to the other. And they would lay each, I'm sure it was all numbered, and they would lay it all in an exact pile. And then it would be there, and they started over here to rice in, and you can see they've come so far already with it, and they're working their way on back to the Cumberland end. And they're the parts that they will need as they come upon it. So it's all categorized, I guess, or planned out where the track would be, where the parts needed to be. It was all done systematically. And the whole time, here's the old bridge with the old train going right across right there while they were working right there. There's another picture of the stuff. Give you some idea of the magnitude of how big it was. There's that guy, look how big guy, but look at all the big pieces of steel and how high up that thing was. And here they are, probably put it together, what goes where, and all done systematically. And in this particular one, Bob and I were able to spot that guy right there. Look at him way up there with the hammer. And I'm sure they're probably driving rivets. And see these holes Ken just spoke of? There's where the men would get inside of there. And people beating and banging, they were inside of that box right there. There's a close-up of them working on the putting the parts together. So after they got all the support, here's what it looked like. The old bridge is pictured here, what it looked like. It was on big brick piers. His, in comparison, here was a steel, which was 7 to 8 feet higher, and it was, of course, had steel, and they had all these braces, and here were the pedestals down at the bottom. And each part had a name. And all of this came out of that technical magazine back there. You can read about that later. So here they are. Here's the track where the train came through every day. And here they are working right over here. And this is the first girder going into place on April 3rd, 1914. And you can see them sitting on the track and swinging that thing around. And I'm sure they knew when the train was coming. I mean, I'm sure they had a telegraph between High Bridge and the train, and they would know the schedule of the train and know when to clear the track or get off the tracks. So you asked me about, or you told me about, the houses on the rice end. If you look right up here on this side, you see all those houses up in there? Right, Bud? Is that where the houses you knew of, are they still there? All down now? Okay. Okay. But anyway.
Maybe that's where all the women were.
No, one of the women.
Bo's the only one that had women down there.
No. I had a lot of help.
Yeah, we know what kind of help you had. But you can see this is the concrete abutment right here. And then these are the steel supports, so they had to lift that piece of steel up, twirl it around, and then set it down just in the right place so all the bolts and everything would fit. But there's a guy up in the thing. And I can tell you, each time they built a section, they advanced this crane forward another section. And you can see this piece right here looks like it was pre-built, and that would probably lower down here. You can see a man right in there, sitting on the old bridge over there, overlooking everything. And there they are, piece by piece, building the bridge. There is the crane that's set up on top, and that was called the 50-ton Norfolk and Western crane. And you can see the old track right here, how close the train came to them when they were working. And this is the thing that this is the crane that they inched right up from the east end all the way to the Cumberland end. Piece by piece, they used that crane to lift the pieces up and put it all together. This is just a picture of the tracks underneath. And they had some tracks running down in here, and they had other tracks that actually fell below the bridge. There's a lot of activity down there. Being able to blow it up, we found like men up there working. You could see the men up there working. There were men all up in here working. Rice end down here, they had started down here top, and they were working their way back to Cumberland. And you can see how each segment, as they got it built, they brought that crane further and further towards Cumberland end. All the while, the old bridge is right here on the right. There is pictures of some of those things, and you can see holes in some of them. And down below, you can see the tracks that ran below. And we've been speculating, I wonder if they dug all that track up to the road. Map avenue, this avenue map, okay. I'm all wired up here. We're going to use this as my phone, which is fine. So all that track that they leave it there and covered up with dirt is still there. You would think if all the people metal detecting down there, they would have thought the thing would have set off some metal detectors, but it's either buried or they dug it up, took it away from there. We're not sure which.
Press the seal, I'll say the way.
Yeah, probably so. Here's a good picture of it from just looking up through there. You can see how it went together piece by piece. This picture came out of another program where it was just talking about Bell negative number 1812. This was taken on May the 18th, 1914. About a month before they finished putting it all up. And you can see there the holes where they were able to crawl in the middle of it. And look back up in there, you can see the men up in there working and so on. Here's a picture taken looking straight down through the thing. That made a pretty good optical picture of that look from where the workers were. Another picture from down below, looking up at it. Here's a picture of, I think this is a fairly recent picture that someone else took and showed you the old pier versus the new bridge with the tracks running right down through there. From the camp, and they have camp office there. This was taken from the camp office, according to the notes. And this is the last girder being laid right there. This is Cumberland end. And you can see the massive amount of dirt they have piled there. And that mass of dirt ran approximately 1,800 feet. It's about 5 football fields long. on the bridge setting the last girder. And, there's a man on that. You can see that man walking along that thin girder line, holding on that piece of steel, guiding it down into place. No belt, no safety belt, just like it's walking around, skywalking. There's a close-up of it. And in this particular one, we noticed on one of the girders, beams, I guess you call it, it said to Columbus. And that meant that that piece of steel went to the Cumberland end. Okay. There we go. You want to put more? Okay. So, to Columbia is written on that last piece of steel, meaning this goes down the Cumberland end. And we were wondering, Brian, do you know if that's paint is still on there? Gone?
I haven't seen it.
Never seen it. I wonder if it's on the inside somewhere where you can't see it. I don't know. But something to think about. Here's the pedestal right here, the square. This is what they drove the piers in and then poured concrete on it. But they're here laying the last beam connecting here to the pedestal there, or I guess you call it platform here, where it connects the earth to the bridge. That's the last setting of the last girdle. There's a good picture, and you can see the word to Columbus. I thought originally it said to Columbia, yeah, in that part of the country, but it's Columbus. There you go. There they are way up in the air, they're just walking around like, okay. One of the last, most important trains that ever went over that bridge was in May of 1963. And they had a Civil War train. Disney made a movie about it called The General. And that train, the original